Hey everyone, and welcome to our podcast. This is Champurrado coming at you live from the internet. Before we start, we just want to say that the jokes we make are not meant to hurt or discriminate against anyone. Everyone is entitled to their own opinions, and we should love one another for our own individualism. We live in a cruel, unadulterated world during abnormal times, and the only way for us to get through it is with humor. Thanks for listening to our project, and thanks for vibing. Enjoy.
Yo, what's good? Welcome to What's Cooking in the Kitchen with me, Brown Sugar, and my co-host, Champurrado, handling the heat so you don't have to.
We're talking about Black Lives Matter, how it has affected our lives, our views on the current administration, and our views on the current civil rights movement. To begin our program for today, I wanted to read a little poem that I'd actually read to a group of individuals at a Black Lives Matter vigil that we had after the death of George Floyd. So I called this poem To Be Black Part.1. I was never able to write Part 2, unfortunately, but maybe sooner or later I'll be able to write it. But the poem starts like this. What does it truly mean to be black? Are you to follow the stereotypes set by others? Is it to escape a mental set of bondage that has been strapped on by the oppressor? Or is it to obey and complain? To be black is to survive, to live a life of obstacles because of the color of your skin, to be associated with sin, and to not be given the choice of redemption because of a skeptical mindset of others who are yet to know you. To be black is to watch the news and see your brothers and sisters slain, and keep a straight face while those around you are filled with shock, while you are filled with silent anger. To be black is to hear the N-word and decide whether or not the user is being discriminatory or ignorant. To correct millions who are oblivious to the dehumanizing word, and to fight those who think it has value and balance a social spectrum, somehow. To be black is to be consistently reminded of your origins of slavery, but not your origin of royalty. To argue and defend yourself from racism and violence from others that try to be humorous or possess a heart as black as your complexion. To be black is to deceive your own kind, to adapt and endure throughout a life of misfortune, to have your culture taken away from you throughout history and be criticized for the way you represent yourself. To pick yourself up off the ground while others tie your hands to cinder blocks and prepare to dump you in a river. To be black is to be stronger than others. To be hardworking but be considered lazy because your people finally stopped working for free. To be black is to look in the mirror and challenge the stigma of beauty while others criticize your Afrocentric features. It's not easy being this way. Being black comes with its challenges. But with almost everything, being black does have its balances. So yeah, that's my poem.
Bet, that's what's up. I liked it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a very nice intro. If only we could have a poem for each intro, or for each episode. That would be nice. But that's a lot of work.
So, maybe next season? Who knows?
Maybe. Just spitting bars. I hate. Can't touch this.
Do I leave this in there? Do I leave this in? Okay, so you can start off with the Black Lives Matter movement.
All right. What is the Black Lives Matter movement? Hashtag Black Lives Matter was founded by Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi in 2013 in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murderer. Black Lives Matter Foundation, Incorporated, is a global organization in the US, UK, and Canada, whose mission is to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted on Black communities by the state and vigilantes. By combating and countering acts of violence, creating space for Black imagination and innovation, and centering Black joy, we are winning immediate improvements in our lives. And that was from the blacklivesmatter.com website, the official website.
Right on. Right on. Okay. I think it's really important that we go ahead and say that yes, this is a movement. Everybody or a lot of people know about it, but a lot of people when they hear Black Lives Matter, they think of it only as a hashtag, or don't necessarily think that there are progressive reasons of having this movement. Sure, if you are progressive or if you are, in the know, I guess you obviously understand that this is only to promote the inequalities that are being seen in the lives of many Black Americans or Black folks in general around the world. But to many others, they just think that it's a mission to actually cause harm to white folks and to
Mm.
actually scare folks. So I think that it's really important that we go ahead and post the actual agenda of the Black Lives Matter movement that they actually had written on their website, because I think that that gives a clear idea of what we're trying to do, you know?
Right. And actually, to add to that point, if you don't mind me saying,
No, go ahead.
I feel like there's a bit of a reflection movement in terms of the Black Panther Party as well, because what was seen is like their movement was also seen as maybe like an attack on other subjects that they had to deal with, other political issues that they had to deal with. And here with the Black Lives Matter movement, I feel like that's a direct, not a direct opposite. It's like a direct. I'm trying to think of the word. A direct equal, I guess, to put
Mm-hmm.
it in simpler terms, to that movement today.
Yeah, I see that, or like it's the equivalent of that movement in a way, in terms of political activism, or at least that's how other people see it, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like as we all know, the Black Lives, or not the Black Lives Matter, the Black Panther movement was dismantled by the FBI because they were deemed to be dangerous. Um, I think that's one of the differences between the Black Lives Matter movement and the Black Panther Party, because the Black Lives Matter movement is indeed a movement, and thus it's a from my perspective, it is a progressive movement that is used to amplify the voices of the unheard, to show that African Americans within this country are not only sick of being dehumanized and killed and disregarded as the equal American, but also I think that the movement is used to show that we can eradicate white supremacy, that there is a possibility that hate can be destroyed,
Mm. Right on.
peacefully.
Only way that we can do it.
um right, and I think that um despite what we see on the news, despite what we see in the media, I believe that the Black Lives Matter movement, for the majority, have been rather peaceful. I have participated in protests. I have participated in vigils and hearings and
Yeah,
giving my own feedback. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I hear you.
Like you went
I
to
think
a.
anything is,
Go ahead.
I don't think anything like over on this side is really necessarily escalated in terms of how we handle the protests. Everything was safe. Everybody knew what they were there for and what they were trying to achieve by going to these protests. And surprisingly enough, there weren't actually a lot of police involvement.
You went to your city hall, right?
Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
I think that's the commonplace for most cities or for most people to have protests.
You know what we did, well, for one of the protests that I went to. It was a student or a youth organized event.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first one that I went to was in because I went to two youth organized events. Excuse me. The first one that I went to was in one of the richer parts of my area. So we had a walk along. So there were probably 1,000 people there at a park. All had masks. All tried to social distance to the best of our abilities. Um, and we walked in a circle for like an hour, and then we had some speakers come up and say their perception on everything that's happening and how they stand in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement and how they stand with African American people. But also, I feel like because of where it was centered, it was heavily controlled by the police.
Mm.
um to give you an example, at the end we had a police officer say their condolences for for the loss of Breonna Taylor, for the loss of Ahmaud Arbery, and for the loss of George Floyd. Even though, let's keep in mind, Ahmaud Arbery was not killed by a police officer. Or no, he was not killed by a current police officer. He was killed by a former police officer. I think that it is essential for us to realize that because of police misconduct, it really makes us think like, when will this stop? Because of how prevalent we see it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Uh,
I hear you.
but so as I was saying, sorry, they were there. They were there. They said some things about it. They gave their condolences, and then we all took a knee, right?
Mm.
But then these photographers came out and were taking pictures of us kneeling with the police officers, and there were a lot of protesters and activists that were not cool with that. Um, a couple of them immediately stood up and were yelling, saying that this is not your photo op. This is not used for propaganda. You will not use us if you're not saying what you truly mean. If you are not standing with us in true solidarity, we will not stand with you. Like there were these. It was crazy, and at
It
one
was
point,
basically like fake activism to make the police look good.
it was performative activism at its finest.
Yeah.
Um, And so my friend and I, her name was Kayla. My friend Kayla and I were like, all right, it's time to go. So I got in her car, and then we just left because it was towards the end of it, and things were kind of getting like
You did? I
shaky
got you.
because of that. And I was like, hey man, I don't want to deal with this. Social distancing, and I just don't want to deal with it. But that was one of
That
the
and
things.
police aren't wearing masks. Like that's weird.
Yes,
Like the ones down in my city, I'm like, come on now.
I have seen that. I have seen police officers in my area not wearing masks or not wearing them correctly.
Mm. Well, for us, it's just they're not wearing masks in general. Like if they go to like interact with you, which we'll talk about later,
Mm-hmm.
it's it's never with their mask on. Like they're never present, not even like around their neck or anything.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
And then okay, so to counteract uh, the Black Lives Matter movement, we have the All Lives Matter movement, or All Lives Matter, which is just a blanket statement. Um, Brown Sugar, how would you describe All Lives Matter
All Lives
personally?
Matter is a direct opposition to the Black Lives Matter movement.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying, like you want a specific food, right? Like I want pizza, right?
Right.
But all foods matter. Like why do you just want pizza? You know what I'm saying? It's like
Mm-hmm.
why would you just want pizza? I mean, every food matters. You should eat this, eat this, eat this. It's like no, I specifically want pizza. You feel me?
It's like you're not giving enough love to these other foods. Yeah, I feel that. Say you're in a neighborhood and there's a house on fire, and you need to drive, or the firefighters need to extinguish the fires. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the residents from the other houses comes out and says, "Hey, what about our houses?" But their houses are on fire.
On fire. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
stupid.
And I'm like, why are you doing this? When I hear people say all lives matter or try to all lives matter, me in particular, when I try to talk about Black Lives Matter, I kind of, in a way, I kind of lose some form of respect for that person.
I get that.
And it's not because like you can have your own political beliefs and all that stuff, but in this case you're directly trying to minimize the trauma and the oppression that we experience as Black folks.
But to be fair to the audience, I feel like some people will say it not knowing like the true kind of like not knowing that it's in a derogatory way. When in fact, if you look at it, it is meant to counteract the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement.
It is. I used to have a friend, uh I'll call him G. So G,
Mm.
um when we were in high school, he would always be like, dude, why do you make everything about race? Why do you always talk about race? And that's because, I mean, it that's just what I am. Like,
Yeah.
you may not think that race controls a lot of things in your life, but it definitely does.
It's one of the
Specific,
first things people notice about you,
yeah,
aside from your personality.
yeah, it is. Like when you first look at somebody, or like for a lot of people, the first thing that they analyze is like their what they look like, and
Mm.
immediately some people look at their skin color, and that can be a radar in determining whether or not you wish to interact with them. I know my dad. He told me a story when I was younger, where he was at a gas station, and this one gentleman, Caucasian American or white gentleman, was walking around, and he was asking everybody for help for like a jump, because I guess
Mm.
like his battery ran out or something. And he asked everybody except my dad. And so I
Mm.
think this was when my dad had like just turned 40. my dad was still like a big chested dude, like a
Yeah, I
muscular
got you.
black guy
The
that
quote
could be
unquote
seen.
stereotypical black guy that people are afraid of.
Yeah, that could be really really intimidating, like bald head, stuff like that. And then finally, after asking everybody, they asked my dad, or that person asked my dad, and my dad was like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll help you," and was like so quick to just like pull out the jumper cables and just help him out. Like, but it makes you think, like, why didn't you ask him for help first?
Yeah, we see a lot of things like that. I feel like
Mm.
people are intimidated by not just black people in general, but like I know it's definitely targeted for like black men. They're intimidated by us. Like tall, black, muscular. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be muscular, but just, black men in general. I don't get it.
Right. Um, and then some people can be really like they can be intimidated by black women as well.
Mm.
Because when black women stand their ground, or when black women like say what needs to be said, they're
They're
seen
deemed as
as,
aggressive.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
They're seen as like aggressive in a way.
Yeah, they're seen as like loud or obnoxious or bossy and aggressive, and it's just like, no, she's just making a point, you
Yeah.
know.
Not a lot of people are trying to hear it. Very
Mm.
sensitive world out there.
As I've seen, there was a post that said, the world within itself tries to call black women loud and aggressive because they never want them to make a noise at all. They wanted them to stay
Mm.
silenced. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true. I agree.
Um, but yeah, and to go back to it, when I hear somebody say, or sorry, to go even further back, we were talking about my friend G. Um,
Mm.
my friend G, uh, he would say like, why is everything about race? Like even when Into the Spider-Verse first came out, I was so hyped because Miles Morales, I was like, oh my gosh, this is an Afro-Latino Spider-Man. Like he looks
Mm.
like me. He's black and has some sort of Latin too. This is amazing.
Presentation.
I was so excited. Like I know this may sound dramatic, but like towards the end of the first time I watched it, I low key shed a
You
tear
cried.
because
Yep, I knew it.
yes, I didn't like bawl, but I just shed a tear because I was so happy to see a superhero that looks like me represented on screen.
I'll forgive you because that was me with Black Panther when I had first seen it.
I
Like the
didn't,
ending of it too was just amazing.
I didn't cry for Black Panther.
You didn't cry for Black
What's
Panther?
wrong with you, man?
Michael B. Jordan. He's the hero to me, but that's a topic for another.
That is a topic for another day.
day.
His line, or one of his last lines, was like cold though. He was
Mm.
like, "Bury me by the river," or "Bury me by the ocean," or something like that. Because um, even my ancestors knew that death was better than bondage, and I was like, in
Free.
the I was
Yes,
like that.
free. Yes.
Um, but yeah, so he would say like, I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, I love him. He's like an awesome Spider-Man. Like he's my favorite one because he looks like me. He's a black Spider-Man, and he retorted with, "Why is everything about race with you?" And I was like,
What?
because that's monumental. Like, how often do you see black superheroes? Like, yeah, you have the Black Panther. You have Wakanda Forever. You have uh Static Shock. You have Miles Morales. You have
You got
you have
Iron Man?
the
No, no. Uh, Batman? No, 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 no. No, no. Yeah, that's crazy. We don't have any black superheroes.
we have Storm.
We have Storm. We have. It's kind of sad that we could basically have superheroes on our fingers.
I think we just I bet they're oh we have Luke Cage. I bet if we think
We
really
do.
long and hard about it, we can come up with a bunch of other black figures. But anyway,
Think, think.
um, I I had a conversation with him about like why everything's happening, like why people were upset, why there were protests, why people were rioting, and he was like, "Look, there are so many. Like, I get it. How he died was terrible, and that they should all be tried and convicted, but there's so many other things that we have to worry about in the world." And in my head, when he said that to me, it made me like think like, oh, so my struggles are not enough for you. Like they don't matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that that I am struck with grief because I see individuals that look like me killed day after day by police officers and by racists over and over. You think that that isn't enough of a problem? I mean, we're Americans. We're all Americans here. We we should look out for each other, right? You see me suffering, why don't you stand in solidarity with me? But he didn't get it. And I kept trying to explain to him, like, look, this is a long systemic problem. This is huge. I need you to understand this, please. And he was like, see, but there immigration is more important than this. Like
All
there
right, bro.
he
You
just
lost
kept
me with
like
that one.
he kept deflecting it like at every turn, right? And I was like, I can't. But then my friend Kayla, the one that I went to the Black Lives Matter protest with,
Mm.
she had an Instagram live video where she was explaining her side and like her view, and this dude stayed for the entire time, and he messaged her and said, "Hey, I'm trying to get better. Thank you for giving me your perspective." And I was like, okay, he's finally figuring it out. It makes me happy when people figure it out despite how late it is. You know what I'm saying?
Genuinely wants to learn.
Like, dude never swipes up on my story anymore. Dude never questions everything that I say about being pro black. Nothing.
Finally, somebody got through to him.
Exactly. Like it, but I don't get it because I've been telling this dude for years. But now he finally. I don't care as long as he understands what we're trying to talk about. Like that's all cool with me. But
Maybe he's seen it enough. Maybe it just took him a while to see it.
yeah, it's quite often, and plus it was over text message. I think that when you have a conversation with somebody over the phone about things
Mm-hmm.
like this or in person, it hits way deeper.
I hear that.
I was talking to my friend Alex, and when I was talking about like the movement and all that stuff, and like why everything's happening, he was like, "Oh, okay, I see now. Okay, I get it. Like I'm not trying to dispute you or anything like that because I know I've seen the statistics. Like it's bad, but I just want to know like why is this happening?" And then I explained why everything was happening to him, and he was like, "Yes, I get it. Okay, I understand." And I feel like when you do explain things to them, when you explain things to them in your voice, when they can hear how angry you are or how upset that it makes you, then it has more of an impact.
Mm.
When they can hear and feel your humanity and like the the raw emotion that you possess, like that's when they truly get it. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. Yeah.
Have you ever ran into any like all lives matter people?
Have I?
Yeah, yeah.
Personally, no, because I've never really kept them in my circle. Like, I could kind of. There's certain traits that you can see from people who don't necessarily respect the movement. And they're usually the same people that blatantly say words that can demean you in a derogatory way. I think you guys know where I'm leading towards
Mm-hmm.
with the word, but like, yeah, I
I
guess you kind of see disrespect, or you can smell it from a mile away when it comes to like the general people that don't follow the movement.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're uh that's exactly why we're our circles are getting cut. You know what I'm saying? Like this movement is really, or everything that's happening right now is like, yes, it's everything is politically charged and racially charged, just socially charged in general. Um, but there's that notion that like you truly have to understand that like if the people that you surround yourself with should have a similar mindset or should be able to accept you for you, and people that have the all lives matter mindset or that are quick to debunk the Black Lives Matter movement, that those aren't people that you should have in your circle because ultimately they're saying that who you are,
It doesn't matter.
it
That's
doesn't
right.
matter. Like
Yeah,
I don't care about who you are, you know.
yeah.
So
These kinds of situations, they definitely test like the loyalty in your friend group.
yeah, they
They'll
do.
definitely be down to ride for you.
Yeah, I know a lot of all lives matter people. I've had a lot of friends that were all lives matter people. I wanted it to just, I looked at it from just being like political, but at this point it's coming to a stance where I'm like, look, it's rather you're with me or you're not. And if you're not with me, that's cool, but I don't want you near me and I don't want you talking to me anymore because I
Mhm.
understand that like everybody's oppressed. Everybody That's not to say that your life isn't hard. Everybody has a hard life to some extent. But the fact that you're trying to say that my life isn't hard because of what makes my life hard, just get out of my face. I don't need you near me, you know?
Yeah. It's not to say that like the other issues don't matter. It's just we're struggling right now. We're being oppressed at this moment. And not even just for this moment. It's been years. Like we deserve to have our own little movement where we can gather and just support each other. That doesn't
Right.
happen too often.
Yeah. And then the way that people try to discredit Black Lives Matter is really it's really mind-boggling.
Mm-hmm. But
Like
in
for
what way?
example,
Yeah.
like okay, it's like the looting and the rioting, right?
Yep.
Like when you look at that, and you hear that people are like, look, these protests are getting out of control. They're looting property. They're destroying buildings. Like it's terrible.
The
But
president called us thugs.
basically, but
No,
you
like
don't.
literally called us thugs.
Yeah, but you don't see that same outcry, that same amount of anger for Black lives that are lost.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's bad, and that capitalism has really, really brainwashed most of the people in this country when they care about property more than they care about the lives of its citizens.
Yeah. I materialistic things over the actual soul.
But do you have anything to say on like rioting and looting? Like, where do you stand on it?
Rioting and looting, I wasn't necessarily like I wouldn't say I have too much of an opinion because I'm more centered on the protest. You feel me? Like people who are rioting and looting, I don't necessarily see it as a benefit, but I don't necessarily like hate it in a way because
Right.
these things are bound to happen when people are expressing their pain.
Mm-hmm.
What pisses me off even more are like the cops that actually like start the rioting. Like you've seen reports of that, right?
Yes, I have actually.
Yeah. Like especially with the one that happened in George Floyd. I forget the cop's name, but I remember he was like dressed up in like all rioter gear or whatnot, quote unquote rioter gear, and he was like smashing windows and stuff. And I was just like, why would you go this far to incite violence? And the funniest thing is that the group of protesters, were trying to get him to stop. I think
Right.
that's the craziest part about it,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not what the movement was about.
And then when like those videos where people were like strategically like placing bricks
Mm-hmm. To
in,
throw him, yes.
yeah, and I was like, bro, what? Why? But speaking of which, that leads us to the Blue Lives Matter.
Jesus Christ.
How do you feel about Blue Lives Matter? Is that how does that how
It's
does that
stupid. Like
whoa
a
whoa
system over lives, it doesn't make. Come on, dog.
what wait, hold on now. What do you mean? What are you talking about?
Yeah, blue lives matter. Like, how do you put a system over race in general? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, okay, blue lives matter, but that's like saying over ethnicity at the same time. Not to offend
Oh
anyone
oh
who's like that, or like if your family's a cop, but like it doesn't make sense. My people matter, not a corrupt system that has failed to serve and protect.
Brown Sugar, you better be careful what you say now.
Yeah, the FBI gonna break down my door right now.
They
I'm
gon'
ready.
they gonna get you.
Yeah,
They
I'll be waiting. They've been trying to get me. I hate
right.
it. That's how I feel.
Um
How do
yeah,
you feel on it? How does Blue Lives Matter? When you hear Blue Lives Matter, what does that?
when I hear Blue Lives Matter, um it makes me think that once again, it's a middle finger to the face to the Black Lives Matter movement because they're trying to say that blue life matters as well, which it does. Let's keep in mind that the Black Lives Matter does not mean that all lives don't matter as much as the Black Lives Matter because that's a common misconception and it's quite preposterous if you think that. What it's really trying to represent or what it's really trying to say is that our lives should matter as much as yours. There has been
You
evidence
chose
throughout
to be a cop.
yes, there's been evidence throughout the recent decades where it shows that Black people are put on a lower pedestal than other races We want people to know that all lives matter indefinitely, but at this point in time, we need people to understand that Black lives are not getting the support that they need, and that they're being shown that we do not matter.
Yeah.
And so when a cop, when someone that says blue lives matter, that really really reps cops, like, I'm all for that. That's great. Like, cool. But you have to understand that your job is not as it doesn't affect you as much as your skin color. Like, you can take off your badge at any point in time. You can quit the force at any point in time. I can't quit being Black. I can't quit being
You
brown.
can't.
I am who I am. You can switch identities. I can't.
You can retire from being a cop. I can't retire from being Black.
It follows me till the day
The
I
day I
die.
die. Yeah, literally. Come on now.
And that's not even in a negative way, because being Black personally, I do enjoy, but it follows you indefinitely. Like, being a cop doesn't. It's a choice. Being Black isn't. Why? Okay. People who are cops can simply stop being cops by taking off their uniform for the day or quitting to remove themselves from danger. Black people can't stop being Black or experiencing the repercussions of racism. Hence, that's why we're being activists right now. Cops getting hurt or killed while
Facts.
on the clock is an occupational hazard they knowingly signed up for. Black people didn't sign
Facts.
up for living with those real fears. And it's quite unfortunate, but we can't leave them, or we can't escape them, unless we do something to change what's happening in our society at this moment.
I hear you.
And people like to use that rebuttal, like, you can't think all cops are bad. I don't personally. I don't. This is where you and I differ, I believe, because
I don't think all cops are bad. I think okay, actually no. You go ahead. Say
no.
your
What were
point.
we gonna say? Go ahead before I say anything and miscategorize anything.
I don't think necessarily all cops are bad. I do believe that there are good cops, but in terms of accountability, where it's like you're accountable of the company you keep, yes. But that applies to everybody in a sense, but cops, when you think about it.
Right.
Agree or disagree?
Agreed. Yes, agreed. I don't think all cops are bad, but I do think that they all contribute to a system that is prejudiced towards people of color, specifically Native
Exactly.
Americans, specifically African Americans, and specifically um, Mexican Americans or Mexican or Latinx folks. Um, I would say Asian as well, but I remember reading something from an article that said that, or no, it was actually from my Criminology for Dummies book. Uh, it actually stated that Asian Americans are the least to experience police misconduct in a physical fashion. Which I've been able to see as well, because when I was doing a research paper on this, I was not able to find that many instances of brutality against Asian Americans. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, because it probably does. I just know that it's the least documented. The last thing that I was able to
Mm-hmm.
find when I was doing the research paper was when that one doctor was dragged off of that plane, but they weren't even police officers; those were security guards. You know?
I got you. Like a
Mm-hmm.
private company, or just like
Yeah,
security
yeah. Well, I
guards?
mean, police forces are privatized too, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah,
Yeah, I hear you.
but when people say not all cops brutalize and kill people, or it's just a few bad ones, I want to say that the ones who do kill and brutalize rarely, and do brutalize, they rarely face true consequences. Um,
Like the cop with George Floyd,
exactly. Like,
man.
our system is so broken.
And we're still looking for justice for Breonna Taylor, who was murdered in her own house.
Yes, slice it any way you want to. I see posts repeatedly saying, "Hey, her boyfriend shot first." I'm like, yo, come on.
Her boyfriend didn't know. Were they even wearing badges at the
I,
time? I
I,
forget.
I don't even know, honestly. Uh,
When they broke in, because he was just defending his girlfriend.
which he has the right to do. Uh,
Yes.
and they shot her. And you know what's funny?
Several
They're not
times.
funny, but you know what's quite ironic and sad
Hmm.
and dark? She didn't die immediately. So that
Jesus
means that
Christ.
they could have administered aid, right? They could have done
Hmm.
something to help her, but instead they let her die.
That makes me sick to
It
my stomach,
does.
man.
And the and it's so sad because I feel like her death was overshadowed by George Floyd's, but that's because besides the fact that George Floyd is a gentleman or is a dude,
Mhm.
it's because we saw there was no you can't dispute George Floyd's death. There's no way that you can call BS on that. You know what I'm saying?
You can't justify somebody standing on another man's neck
Yeah,
for
it doesn't
9
matter
minutes.
what that person did. It doesn't matter like okay,
He could have
he
stopped.
could have. He should have stopped. The officers
He chose
he
not to. He chose to kill that
he
man.
really did. The officers that were around him could have told him to get off. They could have saved his life, but they did not. Um
They probably didn't want to lose their job.
yeah, because that's
That
another
happened
thing.
too.
That's another thing that's bad with the system, person or from what I've been able to see, is that when you see like these cops actually speaking out and saying like this isn't right, this isn't how this is supposed to be, and actually performing their duties in protecting the people that they're supposed to serve and actually speaking for justice and enforcing the law, they get fired.
Christopher Dorner. Not to say that he was in the right, but that's just a situation where it was like, hey, he spoke up against his supervisor and they fired him, which led to the entire manhunt.
Which leads us to continue to think that this system that cops are in is inherently bad, which does make them not all morally, but those that do not speak up and those that do commit police misconduct bad. You know what I'm saying?
No matter which way you put it, it is a broken system altogether. It takes longer to become a lawyer than it does to become a cop. And even when you're a lawyer, you're still acknowledged as a quote unquote practitioner of the law.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make sense?
It doesn't.
Exactly.
Like how are you gonna tell me? How are you gonna tell me what I need to know about the law?
I have more of an understanding than they do. Like,
But yeah. So when I hear somebody say "Blue Lives Matter," um, their lives, the individual lives of those people do matter,
matter.
but their
The system,
occupation, their
yeah.
system does not give them the authority to be any more powerful or have any more authority to be justified to to matter. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, don't get me
I hear that.
wrong. Here, let me explain that because I know some people are going to be like, "Oh, what?" So let me be very clear.
Yeah, they pull the FBI.
Yeah, the lives of cops matter, but you cannot compare their occupation to somebody's ethnic background.
Mm-hmm.
And that's facts. I don't know. I don't care how you slice it. You know what you signed up for when you become a cop. When you're born black, you can't sign up for that.
Facts. Facts.
And then people always try to justify like cops when they try to justify cops when they like panic or when they like shoot 12 shots at a person. Like
Who has their back turned?
tell me, Brown Sugar, how many times have you heard there have been there's an African American or a person of color who shot more than once, more than 5 times? Like how many times have you seen articles like that or read things like that?
I don't even want to think about it, bro. I don't even want to think about it.
Because I know from my final research project when I was a senior in high school, I know that like when I was researching police brutality and how it affects people's outlook towards police
Other.
officers,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in Southern California, um, my teacher literally was like, "Yeah, here there's this story about this one kid, so and so got shot 14 times with this police officer." I'm like, "Bro, why do you need to
That's
shoot somebody?
excessive.
Why do you need to shoot somebody 14 times?"
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, man. It just
Like,
it does.
It literally doesn't make sense. Like, why do you need to unload the clip on some black person because you're frightened? Why are you afraid for your life when it's more likely than not that that African American person or that person of color does not have a weapon on them?
Speaking of which, just a day ago in my city, which is down somewhere in Southern California. Actually, I'll just say, if you're from Pasadena, then you know what's going on with Anthony McCain.
Mm.
He was shot in the back a couple of times when he was trying to escape the police, but or like at least like get away from the police. And even though like he was quote unquote resisting arrest, they shot him because he had a gun. But at the same time, he was running away from the officers. He did not turn, he did not grab his weapon. He was running away from the officer. The officer noticed that there was a gun on him and shot him. And just, I guess out of coincidence, the officer's body cam wasn't on. Ooh, we've heard that story before.
Oh
And
wow.
to add to that story, uh, when the crowd was getting hasty, in a sense, I put air quotations, they maced the crowd, spraying kids in the face too.
Oh man, are you serious?
I'm dead serious, man. Happened yesterday.
Mm. I okay. It, okay. People, why do people try to justify what's happening? You know,
Mm.
um, I'm not gonna say that I'm a person that wants to abolish the police because I think that they do play some form or some type of important role in society, right? But
Yeah.
I do think that it would be wise to defund the police and to give those resources to different officers or to different to different social services throughout a community. You know what I'm saying? Because there is something that I can say about cops. They have a lot on their plate. They do.
Mm.
They do. They whenever someone calls 911, cops are usually there. Like no matter what it is, they're designated to handle so many situations that they might not even be well equipped for. So in that case, why wouldn't you have a police officer be have a police officer that is specified to do these specific duties while you have other social services that can perform their other jobs that they're supposed to even better and maybe even safer than they do?
Mm. That's a good point. Welcome to the world we live in.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they use to justify Blue Lives Matter and that like Black Lives Matter doesn't exist and that our oppression is fake is when people try to bring up black on black crime.
Mm.
And I'm gonna say a very controversial statement. Black on black crime doesn't exist.
Oh, who gonna disagree with you?
A
Black on
lot of
black
people.
crime doesn't exist. Wait a minute. Hold on. You in trouble.
Well, let me
And why
explain.
do you say that?
Let,
Yeah,
let me
I said,
let,
why do
let,
you say that?
let me explain myself. So statistically,
Oh
mo-
Lord.
I had to think about it. Okay, so statistically, most crime is committed within, not necessarily between members of racial groups.
Mm.
This means that although like 90% of black murder victims are killed by black assailants, the same is true for other racial groups as 83% of white victims are killed by white assailants. You know what I'm saying?
There you. And I guess to kind of like add to your point, the reason why people only discuss crime within races, like when it occurs between like members of the black community, is to villainize black people. Like you see how like
Facts.
people like basically give like a negative connotation of black people in the media. Like
Right.
that's a story we've all heard before. And refusing to acknowledge white on white crime furthers the narrative that black people are just inherently violent as a means to justify using like brute force, as we see with like the police as a system.
And that another thing that you can that people try to use to discredit like or to try and discredit people that get like in these predicaments. Um, there are higher crime rates within black communities, and that's attributed to governmental or government sanctioned racism, such as redlining.
Mm-hmm.
You know what redlining is. Um,
Explain it to the audience, just in case.
to give a brief explanation, I hope I'm explaining this correctly. Redlining is basically like when you're, as I've just briefly explained, when you sanction off or when you try to put a specific group of people in one specific part of a city. So, for example, like they would put the lower socioeconomic status people in one specific part of the city, and they would try to restrict them from moving out and branching out to other parts of a city because of their lower economic or socioeconomic status, or because of their race. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
Was that? I think that was that legit?
Oh, that's pretty spot on. Yeah.
Okay. But redline black communities are limited in their access to services, which ultimately leads to more poverty in these areas. Thus, as poverty and crime are intimately linked, it's evident that the higher rates of crime within black communities are caused by governmental oppression and neglect, and not necessarily due to black people being more violent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. I hear you. Because it's like when black people commit crimes against like other black people, like I feel like the sentence is usually harder. Like, don't you feel?
Yes.
Okay, for
No,
sure.
wait. I feel like when a black person commits a crime against another black person, like obviously that's terrible, and they should serve the specific or the right sentence that they should, depending
Mm-hmm.
on what the prosecutor is thinking. But I think that it's important for us to realize that when a African American person kills a white person, like it's basically over for them.
Yeah.
When I was in my criminology class, I learned this. There's a social hierarchy in what will get you to or the death penalty, or what will give you the death penalty if you murder a type of person. So it
Mm-hmm.
goes like this. My professor was very informative, and she practiced law. She knows what she's talking about.
She seems
So
interesting.
no, she's experienced it all firsthand. So she's like, here's how it goes. If you kill a white woman, you are most likely going to be put on the death penalty. That, like,
Jesus.
regardless of who you are, like you're the white woman. If you kill a white woman, you're more likely to get the death penalty, followed by the white male, followed by the Asian American or the Asian person. It doesn't matter what their race is, like, or sorry, what their gender is. So white woman, white male, or white man, Asian person, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's black man, black woman, and then, or excuse me, I have that backwards. It's black woman, black man, and then it's Mexican American woman, Mexican American man,
Mm-hmm.
or a Latinx man.
Jesus Christ.
So
It's like a
the thing that
ranking system.
my what'd you say?
It's like a ranking system.
Exactly, like in that sense, it's depicting whose life is worth more. Um, in,
Because
in a
it's
in a
ugly. Because
very
like, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
My fault.
I was like,
I
in
was
a
gonna say
very
it's ugly because oh.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. My fault. My fault.
No, go.
Are you sure?
Yes, go.
All right, for sure. Uh, I was gonna say it's ugly because like if the roles were like a police officer or like a neighborhood watch, uh, to put it in example, maybe like George Zimmerman, they were to commit the same thing against a person of color, they'd receive basically like no punishment or little to no punishment. Like it would basically go under wraps in a sense.
Protests and rioting, which we already touched upon, has been overlooked by our current administration in numerous amounts of ways.
Mm.
Um, there are the peaceful protesters that have been tear gassed so that our president could take a photo in front of a church. Um, do you remember that?
I don't remember that. That's my first
You
time hearing.
don't? Bro, yeah, okay. They were peacefully protesting, and they had like these military type people like throw like militarized police, excuse me, throw tear gas, have like these riot shields, and like push them back to get the protesters, the peaceful protesters, out of the way so that he could take a photo with the Bible in his hand in front of a church.
Did that for an Instagram flip?
He was basically he was later ridiculed by one of the church officials, like later on that day. And it is kind of sad because like the only time that he does go to church
The
is when he's
priest ain't
trying to take
rocking
a
with you.
photo app.
You going to hell.
I'm sorry.
I said the priest ain't rocking with you. You going to hell, big fella.
Oh yeah, man.
Straight
Mm-mm.
down.
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, like that. I feel like our administration isn't really handling everything very well, and I feel like at no point, besides a couple tweets, has our president actually gave some form of solidarity or gave some form of condolence to the Black lives that have been lost. Of course, obviously, he's going to say something about the travesty of George Floyd, but that like
It's
that's
something generalized.
yeah, it's that's really it. Like, because he has to say something because it's buzzing around the nation. But as soon as it comes to like the protests and the looters, unfortunately, that come along with that, he's immediately so quick to be like, "Hey, y'all thugs." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and send the military. He sent the military on his own people. I don't think I've really seen like a president do that.
Yeah, no, I've seen videos on Instagram that just make me sick to my stomach. But he also used the phrase "so are white people" when they asked him about police brutality and how he reacts to like African Americans being prosecuted or not prosecuted, being wrongfully killed by police. And he was literally like, "So are white people. White people are killed way more than black people." I'm like, okay, look, if you measure them, if you measure the amount of people that are in this country, about 13% of the people in this country are black or identify as black, right? And at a level, if you compare that 13% to those white individuals, we are killed at a higher rate. In Minneapolis alone, like after the George Floyd, like even before the George Floyd situation, African American citizens were 7 times more likely to experience some form of police misconduct. But yeah, we're in a tough spot, man.
Very.
To finish up, I guess, how have you interacted with police?
I guess I could give you a couple stories. Okay. I'll give you the current ones. Yeah, I was with my friend, and we were walking kind of by the sheriff's office or the sheriff's like station because that's where he lives by. And so when we were walking, these two cops put up on us, and they were like, "Hey, you," to my friend. They were like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And the thing was, like, we already knew that we were basically getting racially profiled because we were like, "Hold on a second." The dude thought that he had looked like some other kid, and he called him by the wrong name completely, and we didn't respond. We were like, "What is this dude talking about?" And so, shoot, what else did he ask us? Oh, he asked him for his name, his address, like how far down did he live? Is he from the community? And he was like, "Are you sure this isn't your name?" And I was like, "Bro knows his own name," because he wasn't really saying too much of anything. And I was like, "He lives right down the street. You don't need to know his address." I was like, I told him his name just because I was like, his name's Blair. I didn't want to give him a hard time because I was like, I'm not sure how they're gonna react, in a sense. Like I wasn't sure if they were in a bad mood, if they were gonna hassle us a little bit more, but at the same time, it didn't feel right because we weren't doing anything. And even if we were doing anything, why would we be right next to the police station?
Right.
I'm like, that's kind of stupid. Like, you think the person that's trying to get away from you would be right next to the sheriff's station? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It's not that easy.
Mm-hmm. And today, when I was going to work, I told you this earlier, I was being tailed by a police officer because I knew I was being tailed because, like, I made a left turn and the car was behind me, and I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I make another turn and he was behind me again, and I was like, all right, whatever. I'm like, if I go up this hill and I swing into the park, he won't follow me. So I go up the hill, swing into the park, and guess who's right behind me? The officer. So I park, I get all my stuff, getting ready to work. And as I'm walking, I see the car pull up and just kind of looks at me. He doesn't say anything, he just looks and nods and drives off. And I was like, okay, well, that's weird. I was like, he definitely wasn't here for anybody else. He was just following me. Whether it was to fill up something on his report or not, he wanted to catch me doing something. Or at least that's the mentality that I had. Because I've told you this before, but like when I see a cop or like a sheriff or any person in authority, like my heart skips a beat a little bit. Like it makes me feel nervous behind the wheel. Or even when I'm walking, like I don't know what's gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah.
It's quite unfortunate that we have to feel unsafe. Like we feel unsafe around the police instead of actually feeling protected. Right.
In our own community.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, what do we know? We're just black men.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have rights, right?
Nah, yeah. No. I do have an experience as well. Um, something happened as well with me, unfortunately. Um, when I was with, okay, so I used to train in the park. I used to do martial arts in the park with my old mentor, Nick. And we would always carry a bow staff. We would do like, we would train Shaolin Kung Fu, just the very, 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 very basics. And so we would take our bow staff with us to work on some stuff. And at the end of it, he would drop us off at the mall so that our parents could pick us up. And so one time, he dropped my friend Peter and I off, and Peter and I were walking throughout the mall with our bow staffs, and we were just hanging out, eating, chilling. You know, we were having a good time, and then we both got picked up. But there was another time where Peter wasn't with me, and it was just me and Nick. And when he dropped me off at the mall, and I went to go get food, and I was walking around, um, a security guard actually walked up to me, and I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "Hey, is there a reason why you have that bow staff?" And I was like, um, "I just finished practicing." "Where'd you practice at?" "At the park. My friends and I actually practice and do a little bit of Shaolin Kung Fu. Why? What's up?" "Oh, okay, just wondering." Um, yeah. So I've gotten a little bit of complaints about you walking around here with the bow staff, or with your staff. It's making some of the people out here feel unsafe. And keep in mind, this is early in the morning where the demographics were primarily Caucasian American because it's in one of the richer areas in my valley, and it's also early, so most of the people there were elderly. Um, but so like they're like they feel very threatened, and they would like for I don't know, is there a way that we can de-escalate this? And me being me, like I don't want to start no trouble. I don't want to lose my life. I don't want to, like, because that's immediately what I think about when I get stopped by a police officer or when I get stopped by a security guard or anything like that. It's like I don't want to die. I don't want to make things worse for the people around me. So what can I do to de-escalate the situation before this dude tries and fails? So what I offered was, hey, you know what? If you don't feel safe with me walking around with the bow staff because you think I'm going to go on a massive staffing, here, you can hold my bow staff. Actually, I can't hold that because if I lose it, we're liable for that. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? So can you just sit on that bench and wait? Yeah, I'm supposed to get picked up by my dad. And he's like, okay, well, can you sit at that bench, please, and just wait for us? And I was like, or wait for him. And I was like, all right, fine. So I was sitting down at the bench and chilling. And I told my dad what happened, and my dad was pissed. Especially, and at the moment, I understand why he was so mad. But now that I look back at it, when I was walking around with Peter, with my bow staff as well, nobody said anything. There were no problems. There were no problems. But when it was me walking around alone with my bow staff, people were quick to be afraid and call some sort of law enforcement on me. And I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
This really sucks. Like, and it sucks because whenever I see a police officer, I just get that feeling that feeling of jitterness, that uneasy feeling. Like it
I
sucks.
hear you. I think that's what
Yeah,
most of us go through, actually, which is
yeah.
unfortunate.
But hey, Black Lives Matter. Just get it through your skull.
Please.
And police brutality is a real thing.
And arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor.
Arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor and Elijah McClain.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the podcast and kicking it in the kitchen. Hope to be cooking with you next week for another topic. This is Brown Sugar, also known as B.S. and
Champurrado, also known as C.H. and Champie.
Signing off. Stay greasy, chefs.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and catch us in the kitchen weekly. If you like this podcast, let us know in the comment below. Don't be afraid to drop a like. You won't get burned. Adios.
You sound like a grandpa.
Perfect. You won't get burned. Damn, dude, you won't get burned yet.
Like me passing a kidney stone.
Get it. That's amazing. All right.
My spleen.
3. Uh-oh, I hear people talking in the background. You good?
Right, I'll be back.
Hold on, wait. I can just end this and then start a different one.
I got it, bro. Hey, I'm doing a whole podcast. You and I'm working a little bit. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hold on, let me just send you another one. I want to put. I'm totally putting this at the end of our video.